All right. How are we doing today? Not back to Project 2025 just yet. We'll get back to that in, probably next week. A couple things I just, there's so much going on, all the time. So, I mean, I can definitely understand why, people have all these different people doing so many different networks and broadcasts and all these different topics. It really helps, I guess, to nail all those down if you have a whole lot of people having these different network talks on your page versus just one guy trying to keep up with different things. I'm not going to be that guy who does like 25 friggin' streams a day or streams for like 10 hours a day. Nothing like that ever. I choose life. But I wanted to go over the health insurance thing since that's a hot topic right now. Honestly, it should always be a topic. Topic for the left, topic for the right, topic for literally everybody. And the reason that it should be a topic is just because it affects everybody's lives. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or anything. It's something that everybody has to deal with one way or another. Just trying to get, if you can't get healthcare insurance, you're just going to end up with thousands and thousands of dollars in medical debt, which is something that's worldwide. It's not unusual. It's very it doesn't work this way in 90% of the world. It's kind of a weird thing that we're one of the richest and wealthiest nations in the world. We're one of the most advanced technologically and medically countries in the world. So it's not like obviously if you're in a third world country, the opportunities medically just aren't necessarily the same. So yeah, you could say that that's going to offset some medical costs that way. Like you're not going for the same levels of brain surgery. You're not getting the same services and scans and everything that you would in a first world country. I don't think anybody is suggesting that as part of the thing, but at the same time, and we're really comparing ourselves to other. Hold on a sec. We're comparing ourselves to other nations who have similar healthcare situations, other first world nations, and Canada. Yes, China, England, most of Europe, honestly, just countries that are like us. And it's just weird that we're the only country where you either have to go into crazy medical debt or you have to spend an absurd amount of money, honestly, every month to get health insurance on that you may or may not need. And if you do need it, what is the adage? Deny, defend. There's a third one in there. But basically, the insurance companies want to do everything they can to deny your claims. If they'll look for anything on that paperwork to deny genuine medical needs. People have the same thing with a lot of the jobs that you're at. If you have a medical need to be away from work for a while, your job typically will try to find a way to not authorize your medical leave if they can get away with it, because then they have to deal with all the ADA stuff and the insurance and being down a person without being able to hire a replacement for so long. Sometimes they have to pay medical benefits of that nature. So between the medical insurance itself and jobs, there's so many people out there who are trying not to take care of people, which is weird. Obviously, one of the things you want in a productive society is a healthy society. If you want everybody to be at their maximum potential for productivity and consumerism, they have to be healthy enough to do so. If people aren't healthy, how can they go and buy things and do things that are supporting all these economies? If they're not healthy, how can they work for you and produce the things that you need to produce to sell? So at every point in the economic gambit, you need everybody to be as healthy as possible. The idea that we should look for any niche with which to deny keeping these people healthy or taken care of, that's just silly. It's not going to help anybody. And obviously these industries are making just an absolute absurd amount of money and they're profit driven, as any company is. There's no real company out there that's not driven surely by profit. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to not want to have profit. I don't think anybody would ever say that your business model shouldn't be for profit, unless you're a not-for-profit company. In which case, then I think that would be maybe a decent argument in that light. But realistically, when you're creating a company that's supposed to do something, and you're selling a product that you're telling people that you're going to take care of them if something bad happens, I think it's a reasonable expectation that when something does happen, then that it's taken care of. Well, unfortunately, as we all know, the health insurance companies, that's not their goal. Their goal is to only take care of what the law forces them to take care of. They will deny, even if they are lawfully supposed to take care of it, because if they can deny long enough and you don't seek a lawyer out or something to force the issue, a lot of times, even though legally they should have, they'll just get away with denying you. And a lot of times they'll even block it with a lawyer because they know that you don't have the money to fight them long enough, sometimes to even survive it. They actually expect a number of people with more serious issues will die before their court case can be even won. And then you have to have your living, if there's any buddy who's alive who has the legal right to pursue a lawsuit on them, then they can fight that. And the crazy thing is, they can actually settle sometimes for less than the medical care would have cost. And they see that as a win. They see it as a win if they can settle for, let's say we have to pay you $10 million because of a wrongful settlement or a wrongful death suit. But I saved my company, $25 million in medical costs over the years. That's a win in their books. They don't care that somebody died. They don't even care that they lost that secondary suit, because that was kind of the plan from the get-go. That was an acceptable loss from the get-go for them, because it was cheaper to do it that way than it was the other way, which is insane. Insane that we can have companies in America that can legitimately, legally do this. This is an actual business fucking model. It's completely unethical, but it's all about profit. It's all about making sure you get the bottom line and save as much money as possible, however you have to do it. So, yeah, I mean, just wild. I haven't actually even looked through this specifically yet. One of the things I just checked real fast is because obviously this Brian Thompson fellow was basically assassinated the other day. United Healthcare was the company he was the CEO of, and the stock since then has went boom. Let's check the 5. See, yeah, and suddenly, right after, it's really, really interesting that, I mean, it's what, $30 a share, so the chart is a little misleading because you have to look at the left. It's not as bad as they make it look, but still. And that's it over time. So this is not even as bad as it was in November, and was even worse much worse in July. So yeah, I mean, why did it go up? But is it going to continue to go down? We don't necessarily know, but we do know that it did take a little tumble. Right here, it's gone down about $25-$30 a share. That's not that bad a thing, but that's a crazy amount. I don't even know how many shares there are out there, but for a single stock in a health insurance company to be $580, I'm like, Microsoft is $443 a share. So for an insurance company share to be valued that much more than a one of the biggest tech companies in the friggin' world stock, that's kind of friggin' nuts. I know Apple's stock is, less than half of that even. So Amazon, one of the most successful tech companies, $221 a share. Now, it could be that there's so many more shares of these that they're just more diluted, of course. So it's really hard to say. There's a lot of factors that come into that. It's still weird that a health insurance company can be solvent at that kind of share value. And let's see, United Healthcare net profit 2023, and let's see if it's on one of the macro trends. That's a site I use a lot. It's a good site. It's a non-biased site. It just reports the actual stats. So this is their actual growth year to year. They've been struggling a little bit there recently, and that could just be something just coming back with the rebound of all the healthcare industry shit from COVID and such. Trailing 12 months. So yeah, this is, let's just say from 12/31/2022. So their profit went down considerably. Now, if I was a conspiracy guy, for their profit to go from $22 billion to $14 billion in revenue, that would be crazy that their company would suddenly do this. Now, I don't know when he was hired or anything like that. We're not going to get too into the weeds with that. But I do want to just look over, like, this is what their net profit is. All right, so for 12 months, it doesn't actually list which month we're here, but quarters are even better. That's what most businesses do by. So, you know, they've made $10 billion in net profit. That's pretty considerable. Annual net income, so that's after all expenses, $22 billion they profited in 2023, and $20 billion. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, this chart doesn't show everything the way that you would think it does, because it's changing some of the variables. You have to go down here to see more information and how that impacts that chart. Golly. Ever since COVID, really, their net profit has skyrocketed. Went from, before COVID, they were making 10 to 11 billion a year, and now they're making twice that much. Obviously not a COVID related thing. Probably the value of the dollar going up. So while this number might be higher, whether or not obviously the value of the dollar isn't quite the same. So that would be probably closer to these margins, honestly, in the value of a dollar. But still, it's a considerable increase in how much you're making. Obviously, that's kind of wild. Absolutely nuts that they are making that kind of friggin' money. $22 billion in net profit. And that's just this one insurance company. Like, if we look up, like, top health insurance companies. So United Health Group is the top one. Then you have all these other guys. And so we're not even looking at, like, other popular ones. And this doesn't talk about all the ones that they have underneath as an umbrella company that would have a whole bunch of smaller healthcare companies that work into it. Because obviously a lot of the private insurers that you get at your local town, the people that you would get from, there's probably like 10 different small business health insurers in our area, and they all go through these larger companies. So they're not selling like their own privately backed up insurances or anything like that. They're all subsidiaries of larger companies. So, and maybe not these ones specifically. It's actually kind of like a pyramid thing, to be honest with you. There's companies that are owned by companies that are owned by companies that are owned by companies. So it's all backed up by shit like this. It's really crazy how that works. It's really dumb too. But yeah, the $22 billion in net profit for one health insurance company. And that's after the millions and millions of, like, let's see if we can find the dollars in advertising from health insurance. Advertising dollars from spent by insurance companies. Well, I'm sure they spent less, but let's see if they can tell me how much they did spend. Around $1 billion each. So if you're making $22 billion and that's net profit, you spent $1 billion on and these are just auto insurance. I don't even want to. That's wild. Almost $2 billion by Geico. And that's just it. They will deny you your fucking insurance. They will deny you your claims, but they will absolutely spend billions of dollars in advertising. One of the things that small businesses live by is that a lot of your advertising should be done by how well you do your job. Then, of course, the people that you're working with, that they're your customers, they'll tell other people like what a great experience they have, what a great product you offer. But unfortunately for Americans is that when you get to such a large market as a national level, it doesn't really matter. At some point, everybody expects that there's going to be bad experiences, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is these guys live and breathe on the fact that people need insurance. In some states, it's a law that you have to have automobile insurance or health insurance, to some degree at least. I mean, to even get medical care of a decent nature, you have to have decent insurance. Having been somebody who's gone without insurance, who's had state insurance and has had private insurance, the differences in the level of care you get is pretty obvious. And even then, if you don't have a higher level of medical care or level of medical insurance, again, the level of treatment you get versus somebody with a higher level of medical insurance is pretty obvious as well there. It's really crazy that unfortunately your hospitals are going to treat you very differently depending on how much insurance you have. The number of tests that they're going to do is based on the insurance you have. And let's be honest, some of those tests aren't necessarily even going to yield any results. They're not even expected to necessarily yield a result, but their insurance will pay for them and they can justify it. They can say, well, we're ruling something out. We don't think it is this, but there's a slim chance it could be, so we need to do the test to rule it out. And the insurance will pay for that. So I'm not saying that the insurance companies are all wrong in everything either. There's a lot of levels of bullshit and people abusing systems that's going on here. I mean, we have to be completely honest anytime we're talking about things of this nature, this magnitude, where you obviously have people who are less than ethical. And it's not just obviously a doctor. It's not just one doctor. It's not one company or one salesman. There's a lot of people who are abusing systems one way or another, and unfortunately, we've come to this situation. Now, one of the ways, obviously, we could get past a lot of this is, and it's such a difficult subject because it's been politicized so strongly. But a universal healthcare package would solve a lot of the issue. Obviously, the question is always, how do you get it run correctly? How do you make sure people are getting the proper care? How do you make sure everybody's making the money that they should be making? What about all the private insurance companies? Well, fuck them, honestly. In this situation, fuck private insurance. I don't think, honestly, private insurance is doing the job that it needs to do for our country. I don't think it helps our economy. I don't think it's helping keep people safe or keeping people healthy. I don't think it's doing anything other than making a lot of people with money even more money. That's the sad reality of it, is that your insurance companies are just not doing the job that they should be doing. They can say, yeah, oh yeah, we're bargaining prices lower, bargaining prices lower. Yeah, but honestly, prices just should be lower. The only reason prices on a lot of stuff are as high as they are is because of insurance companies. That's why when you go overseas, you can get drugs for so much less than you can get them here, because they're not dealing with insurance companies in that same way. So the idea that you need to have some middleman to take a price that's been heavily inflated in light of the middleman existing, to get a fair shake is crazy. It's like going to a car dealership, and the only way you can buy a car is you have to go through a special salesman, not like a normal salesman. You got to have another guy who is there to talk to you and then talk to that other salesman. And that other, this in-between guy is going to make decisions for you. Strike that rather. You're going to talk to the car salesman that's there. He's going to talk to another guy. And that guy's going to determine what car you can have. It's going to determine what color car you can get. He's going to make all these decisions based on what he thinks versus what the car salesman and you have talked about, and your own financial situation. But you have to go through this guy. He has to approve it no matter what. And normally that car would only cost you, whatever, $15,000, $20,000. But because there's this middleman there now, the car dealership is going to charge $40,000, and you have to pay this other guy, so much money every single month, whether or not you're buying a car that month, just in case you want to buy a car that month. And when you do, he still gets to deny you that purchase if he doesn't think that that's the right car for you, or if you even need a car. That's essentially what health insurance is. It's a way of driving up the value of everything so that you pay this guy so much more money, and he gets to determine if you even need that health insurance or that health care. And most of these guys, they're not doctors. They have no medical understanding of a lot of this stuff. And they're going to go, well, yeah, but you don't need that for this. There's people can argue. There's literally millions of cases out there. There's thousands and thousands of articles where people have been denied healthcare for stuff that's just obvious. Just getting standard shit. And I'm sure all of us have had our doctors speak to us at one point or another. If you actually talk to your doctor, not everybody does. But they'll talk to you about the issues that they've had with insurance companies denying things that are blatantly obvious that somebody needs. And the health insurance company will say, they don't need that really. What they really need is blah, blah, blah. And it's freaking nuts, because somebody may need this to live. They may need this to be able to even have any quality of life. And they're just going to get denied because the insurance company just wants to make money. Half the time, they're not even actually looking at what the medical situation is. They're not looking at what the drug is. They're just trying to save money. So there's so many people who have been in the healthcare insurance industry who have come out as whistleblowers, and they've illuminated a lot of these practices. We're not going to get anywhere in our country until we deal with the medical industry and the wild amount of money that they make. Net income increased 6% to over $18 billion from just over $17 billion for, that's just, and obviously their stocks are doing, they've been doing very well. And unfortunately, we're going to see healthcare insurance stocks probably take some hits in the next couple of years. I do predict that. Health insurance is something that I don't know how much you guys spend a month. I know that my wife our insurance we get through her company, and we spend what is it over? We have I think the top one that they offer through her company, and that's over $600 a month we spend on healthcare insurance. And I go through the VA, so that's $600 basically, just in case her or the kids have to do something. It pays for one of our kids' therapy stuff and some prescriptions, but that's basically all we use it for. So that's a crazy amount of money to pay every single month just for that. But we need it just in case. That's one family. And you're looking at literally how many million American households have insurance. Even the ones I was looking at the cost of ACA the other day, and you're looking at even for people who are very, very poor, you're looking at what, like $400 a month for health insurance, just in case. That's kind of wild to go. Well, you're dirt poor, but still have to find a way to come up with $400 extra for an illness you don't even have right now that you may have later. You know, you want to talk about figuring out how to get money back into the economy. How about putting it back into the economy and not through this? Did you know that if there was a universal health care, it would actually cost every single American less money than they are spending on it right now? It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, or otherwise. Everybody would actually spend less money in taxes on the small tax increase that it would incur to have universal health care than you're actually spending right now. And one of the reasons for that is that there's so much healthcare that's already covered through Medicare, Medicaid, programs like WIC, programs like, state aids or state aid, programs that every state has a healthcare program that's their own. Obviously all the welfare situations like that, the number of veterans and government employees that are already covered through healthcare. I did a video a while back on this a couple years ago about just how much money and how many people are actually covered in some way, shape, or form by state or federal medical coverage. So you'd only be covering people who are privately insured at this point, which actually ends up being a much smaller portion of the population. Like most people think that all between the state and federal stuff, you're looking at only like maybe 60% or 70% of like people would be uncovered, and it's less than that. It's significantly less. It's closer to 50% of the nation wouldn't be covered or is covered by private insurance. So that's the only people that would have to get covered, and it would actually be significantly less annually and a little bit of taxes to get that coverage. Now people are always like, well, why should my dollar go pay for somebody else? Well, in this situation, the dollar would just be paying still for the same services you would be receiving now. It just means everybody's just going to be taken care of. Now, would that cover elective surgeries and stuff like that? No. Elective surgeries would still be something where you would have to pay out of pocket, and there could still be private insurance companies that would help cover elective surgeries and stuff like that. So that's still something that they could transition, this private insurance market as it is into something more like that. I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble with my breathing today, a little bit. My lungs are just tight. But yeah, obviously there's room for these companies to transition into a more niche market for elective surgeries and additional benefits that maybe wouldn't be covered underneath a national program. So there's nothing saying that just because there isn't nationwide health insurance for stuff that, or just because there would be a nationwide health insurance, that all these companies would have to close. Absolutely not. They could be additional coverage. They could cover things that, because obviously if there's a nationwide one, there's probably going to be caps on how much can cover at a time. what kind of things it's necessarily going to cover by default, up to a certain dollar amount, blah, blah, blah. There's always going to be boxes that everything's going to fit into. There's going to be limits. And you can always have private insurance transition into covering things beyond those limits and those margins. Obviously, those limits are going to be hit less often, so these companies would be less useful in that light. But by the people who would need those things, they would be paramount. So they would still have a very ready market for that sort of thing. But then in the end, you have a healthier workforce. You have people who, if they're sick or hurt, they just go to the doctor and get treated. Right now, we have a workforce that often comes to work sick or injured, and they're doing a poorer job than they could be doing. They're getting other people sick if they're sick. A lot of the times, work and school are the two most popular places for people to transmit transmissible or communicable diseases and viruses. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think health insurance companies, any insurance company, I think the whole thing is a scam. Can they be helpful? Absolutely. But let's look at health insurance companies realistically. What you're really looking at is a company that. Here, let me see if I can. I'm going to create a paint. Let me add this app real quick so that you guys can see it. Let's see. Window capture. It's so hard because my screen is in 4K, but all of this stuff is actually much, much smaller. So we'll go here. Okay, so we got paint. Grab my little, we got here. It's in high res. Hopefully it'll be thick enough. All right, so we have Mr. Moneybags over here. And he's got lots and lots of money. And he's like, how do I make much more of this money? Right? So then we have, Average Joe over here. Average Joe, we know is going to get sick. And we know Average Joe is going to not only get sick, but he's not going to have enough money to pay for his medical stuff. So what we do is we tell Average Joe that if he gives us, $20 a month, that we will cover any medical bills he has if he gets sick, knowing that Average Joe is not going to get sick very often. And then we tell him to tell all his friends that we'll cut them the same deal. I obviously have plenty of money to cover it. So don't worry, Average Joe, you and your friends can all give me lots and lots of money, and I will be happy to cover all your medical bills if and when you actually do get sick. So Average Joe goes and tells all his little friends, and all his little friends are lining up, and they're so happy. And it ends up being, let's say 1,000 people. So, 20 times 1,000 for anybody who can't do math real easy. Let's just carry zeros, right? So now we got $20,000 a month, or whatever the case may be. Let's say it's bi-weekly because it's $40 a month total. So now he gets $40K every single month. Now, on occasion, one of these guys does get sick. Obviously, that's going to happen. However, he gets to say, well, we have a contract, and this specific illness or this specific ailment isn't covered in that contract. Or you live in a place where you're more prone to this, and according to the terms of our contract, that nullifies me having to pay for it because I'm not liable for where you live, causing your your illness. And then this guy is completely screwed because he signed that contract not knowing that was in there. And then we have, of course, the situation where this guy gets something and he's dying, and he does get covered. Yay, right? Gets covered for that stuff. And let's say this cost a grand total of over the year. So this guy's making $40K a month times 12. I'm going to cheat because so 480, yeah, 4 times 12, yeah, duh. So $500,000 a year, $500,000 every single year he's making, just in case. Just in case these 1,000 people, and that's only 1,000 people that are paying for this right now. And that's only at $20 every week. So if that gives you any idea how much, obviously, like let's say, let's just put my family's in there. So $600 a month times 12. So yearly we're spending that $7,200, right? Now, obviously, if you're adding another 1,000 people into that, that's $7.2 million. And that's only with 1,000 people. And that's only in the one company. Now, let's go look at maybe statewide and say there's 300,000 people. So now we need to multiply that by 300. And that's $2.1 billion just within a state. That's with 300,000 people. That's not even close to how many people are out there, right? So, but anyway, this guy in our situation has $500,000 to play with. And that's extra money. That's extra money that on top of what he already had. So the whole premise of this was that he already had a whole bunch of money to give to these people if they got sick. On the other hand, these people are giving him way much more than he's handing out. That's how insurance works. And it seems fair because each one of these individuals, without him, wouldn't be able to individually pay for all of this stuff. But here's where the trick comes in. Now we have the medical industry guy, right? And he goes, well, wait a minute. If this guy has all this money and these people can all afford to give him a little bit of money at a go, and I would normally only charge, $100 for this surgery, but this guy essentially has made, $500,000 in the case that they need the surgery. Here's what I'm going to do is instead of charging these guys $100, I'm going to say this surgery is obviously worth a lot more because it's worth more to him. So since these guys are no longer my market, they're now a product. They are now something that I'm making money from, and I have to barter with this guy. So they're not even a part of this circle. This is this own circle, right? So we like to think that it would be like something that goes like this, right? Where every single one of these guys would be a part of this one big circle, but we're not. We're two completely separate circles. And now you are a product or a commodity rather, even to this guy, or to this guy rather, because he's going to make money off of you. Instead of charging $100 for what he could have charged, he's going to say, well, now I can charge this guy $1,000. That's where we're going to start off. And then they barter, and maybe they barter it down to $750 that he's going to pay them. So that's how the bargaining goes. What used to be really, really, barely affordable to these guys became increasingly, insanely unaffordable to these guys because this guy can afford it, all because of everybody putting all their money into this guy for those surgeries. It's collective bargaining gone backwards, essentially. So that's where we're at with medical care in the United States. This is essentially the breakdown of how healthcare insurance and all this privatization really fucked the average American, because we no longer became people involved into this situation. We became a way to make a lot of money for this guy and this guy. Both of these dudes are making out like bandits. Actually, more so this guy. More so by a long shot, this guy, than your hospitals. Your hospitals are getting basically kind of screwed, and they're struggling, honestly. I'm not going to lie. They're trying to figure out how the fuck that they're going to make their money. While this guy is obviously profiting billions and billions of dollars. Hospitals are looking for financiers all the time, and donors, and people trying to, anybody who's got a philanthropic bend to them to help them afford to cover their costs. And it's nuts that your healthcare insurance providers are making, $18 billion in net profit every single year. That's net. That's after they pay their CEOs and CFOs and all their board members and everything. Everybody else gets their bonuses. That's what they have left over. So, yeah, I mean, holy Christ, on a cracker, how is this something that, we don't realize is a huge, huge problem? Because this guy, and all universal healthcare is going to do is basically say, like, to hell with this guy. We just want to deal with this guy. And we're going to say that, all of this, we're going to replace this guy with the government. My terrible, terrible eagle. You can kill my paint skills later. So the government's going to be like, okay, we're going to take care of this ourselves. And this guy no longer matters. All this no longer matters. You're not going to pay that. What we're going to do is we're going to have you pay, say, $2 out of every paycheck into a government fund. And that budget's going to go to these guys. Now we're going to negotiate these prices back down, right? So what would have been $100 initially is hopefully going to be $100 again, rationally. All these microtransactions that they try to add on for a Band-Aid or for napkins or for, we used a surgical scissors that we're going to be able to reuse in the future, but we're going to still charge you for the use of that surgical scissors. If you ever look at an itemized report of all the stuff that goes into these bills, it's nuts. And they're going to, on universal healthcare, we go, no, we're not playing this game. You're going to tell me what services you provided, and we're going to come up with a fee that makes sense for that. Obviously, you would have to utilize this stuff in that procedure. But one, some of these are not things that you're not going to be able to reuse again, because you can just clean a surgical scissors. You're going to freaking use it again 1,000 times. Why on earth would we ever pay you that much money for something that you can reuse? And it's part of what you need for the surgery. We're not, going to pay you for every single time you use the scalpel. We pay you for the job that you do with it. So all of that gets squared away, gets figured out. The costs are brought back into line. And then for profit, medical industries, transition. Obviously, doctors would still make their money, nurses would still make their money, but the idea of doing something like that for the field of being able to go into, I'm going to go drive the most expensive Lamborghini or something, that kind of would fade and change a bit. You would have more people go into the industry because they want to be part of the industry, but you would also see a change in your educational system, which I'm interested in. Anytime that you can change the dynamics of the interest of why people want to go into one of those systems, that's always a good thing. So if somebody doesn't want to go into healthcare because it's a massive profitable thing, then these colleges that are going to be teaching for that, they have to figure out how to change how much they're going to charge for that education. I think one of the main barriers to having a really good I don't know if I want that one. Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest barriers to getting a quality medical workforce is the barrier of education to it. The fact that it costs so much money to become a doctor. It really shouldn't. It's something that we need. It's something that is intrinsic to a healthy and great society. I really think that putting people into either massive medical or a financial debt is not a great way to start things off, especially in a field that's so emotionally tumultuous, shall we say. We just need people who want to be a doctor, who have the skills to become a doctor, to be able to become a doctor. You just can't have enough doctors out there. The idea that you could ever oversaturate with qualified doctors is crazy. So having more people have access to it would drive competition. It would improve the quality of healthcare. It would incentivize doctors to always stay on top of things and do a better job. We've had too many people who were in the field for a very long time who just don't want to listen to people, who don't want to listen to their patients. And I get it. I do get it. I mean, just talking with people on a daily basis where they obviously don't know a lot of the times what they're talking about, but they want to come in with all of their very, very poorly informed opinions. And they want to, obviously there's conspiracies. Conspiracies abound around medical stuff. You have so much just awful information about things that people repeat, and they don't understand the difference between so many different things. One thing would be like ivermectin. The difference between animal ivermectin and human ivermectin is significant, and using one would be very, very, let's say ill-advised. Yeah, don't do that. Not that ivermectin, there is an ivermectin for humans, absolutely. And unfortunately, during COVID, people were conflating the two, and they were making claims that weren't accurate. And they were stating that some things had solutions. Now, one of the problems that I had with a lot of the cures during COVID was that people would say, well, this is just the flu, or somebody took this and they got better within 3 days. Well, for some people, without any kind of intervention, they just got better in 3 days because they didn't have a serious case of COVID. You can have that with a lot of illnesses, where somebody just gets better. And that's why we do a lot of medical research, because one of the greatest things you can understand about anything statistically is that correlation is not causation. That means that two things can both exist, but just because one of them exists with the other one does not mean it had any bearing on the nature of the other one. That's why you have to do so much research. That's why you can't just look at a few cases and go, well, this guy took this and then got better 3 days later. You could be like, well, 1 million people ate steak, and then 3 days later, they didn't have COVID anymore. Steak then, therefore, obviously must cure COVID. Steak does not fucking cure COVID, obviously. We could correlate those values, but they are not causal. They did not have that effect. Putting those things together would be foolish to do so. So it's important that we know how to actually practically analyze relevant data and the science behind it and go, okay, yes, this did happen. This guy went on a motorbike ride, and 1,000 other people also went on motorbike rides, and then 3 days later, they were all better. Did motorbike rides cure cancer? No, it did not. They had surgeries in between then, and the surgery is what removed the cancer, you know? So once you add that extra bit of data in there, like, oh, well, yeah, before that, without knowing that, I would have thought maybe it was the bike ride. Shit, maybe they're onto something. But then we get, all the rest of the information, or all these people got one of the things I got the shots, the jabs, as some people like to call them. I don't know how boxers feel about that term being used, by the way, the whole jab thing. But being a guy who likes to spar, liked to spar, and got into a whole lot of fights. I think calling it a jab is silly, because I'm thinking like jab. I really have a hard time thinking about going into a doctor's office and there's a doctor or a nurse in there waiting with a syringe and she's just like jab. Like the whole thing is funny to me. But yeah, no. A lot of people, when I first got really, really sick afterwards, were like, well, are you sure it wasn't the shot that got you sick? Because I've heard things. Well, I'm sure you heard things. You heard things before anybody even got shots. There was already conspiracy prep work being done before anybody even got a single vaccine for this. There's been vaccine conspiracies long before COVID vaccine came out, and a lot of the rhetoric came from those exact same people. So color me disinterested in any information that comes from highly uneducated people who have no interest, no knowledge of medical science or biology whatsoever, trying to question any kind of vaccination. Number one. Number two, the number of people who got long COVID who didn't get any shots is more than high enough to make it obvious that it had nothing to do with the shot. You could get long COVID with or without the shot. There were people who didn't even have COVID bad enough that they went and got checked and never had a positive diagnosis, but later on were presenting with all these really bad symptoms that were like long COVID. And then they would get tested, and it turns out they had COVID antibodies. For those who don't know, if you have antibodies to something, it means your body fought that and is ready to fight it again. So they had COVID, their body fought it off, and it may not have been anything that was so bad for them that they got really, really sick, or sick enough that they thought they needed to get tested, but they still had it. And now they have long COVID. They never got a vaccine. They never even thought necessarily that they had COVID, maybe just a cold, whatever the case may be. But now they have long COVID. And there's so many cases like this where people either didn't get tested because they didn't think they had COVID, or they just refused to get tested because they thought the whole thing was a load of bulk, whatever the case, didn't get a vaccine whatsoever, ended up with long COVID. There's a lot of cases of this. And it's enough that if somebody goes like, oh, I think everybody with long COVID got it from vaccine. Obviously not. Their symptoms are exactly the same as the people who got COVID, did not get a vaccine. And unfortunately, that's just how science works. If people who did get the vaccine were the only ones who got it, you could have a case there. If there was a different symptomology of people who had gotten the vaccine and had had COVID, you would have a case there if there was a different symptomology. Or if people got the vaccine but never had COVID and they were having all of this and it was purely that, then you would have a case there. But again, it's none of those. And unfortunately, everything points to it just being something that could be a long-term effect of COVID. It does have a lot of long-lasting impacts, and it's something new. So what's more rational? Something that is a fairly new virus that does impact all of your internal organs, does have neurological impacts, could have long-term impacts that we don't know yet and we're studying and we're trying to figure out, or that a conspiracy made by people with absolutely no understanding who were making assertions before the vaccine was even out are probably right, even though they have absolutely no medical background. And don't give me foot doctors. Somebody did that once. They tried to tell me, well, this doctor is so-and-so. And I was like, okay, well, one, is this guy really a doctor? Because you should always ask that question anytime somebody just claims to be a doctor. One, are they a medical doctor? Because you can get a doctorate and be a doctor without being in a medical field. And some people, unfortunately, do make those weird claims, and I don't know why. Two, just being in the medical field does not mean you're a specialist in any specific area. If there's anything that people should at least be able to glean off of basic fucking television, yeah, I'm going to TV because they teach you shit if you fucking pay attention. Is that doctors go in as your basic general practitioners and they pick a specialty later. They go into those fields. They do more research. They go back to, they're doing schooling the entire time, trying to become better at specific fields of medicine. So your average doctor is not a specialist in, virology, let's say. They may know some basic cellular biology that they would have to learn in school. But if he's like a 20-year podiatrist, somebody who's been working on feet this whole time, he may know some stuff about foot medicine, but he is not an epidemiologist. He is not going to know anything he needs to know to really get into that mess. And when he's disagreeing with people like the entire epidemiology community, then yeah, I'm going to say this guy's a wackadoo. He's got a specific bend. And unfortunately, he let his politics cloud his obviously, let's say, mediocre education. Again, education changes too. We learn a lot constantly. We're researching all the time. We're adding more information into what we know. And one of the things we have to understand about that is that any field where somebody's been in there for a long time, we naturally want to say like these people obviously know what they're doing because they've been in this field for a very long time. But unfortunately, there are fields like medicine, technology, even physics. There's fields where we're doing breakthroughs all the time and finding out a lot of what we used to know was either wrong or only a portion of the story, that there was so much more to it. And why that's important is because, like in the field of medicine, if you're still working on old information, you're missing like 3/4 of the story a lot of the times. So you can, if you go into a specialty that, and then you're going to comment on something that you learned 20, 30 years ago in medical school, that information may be completely incorrect by now. It may be it may only be such a small portion of the story that you completely misunderstand everything beyond that point that we have learned since then. And now you're trying to practice medicine with very, very old, outdated information. And that's very misleading to do. So anytime you get information, it's really important that you trust the people who are in those fields, who are studying that information. And I hope that makes sense. Like if you go to a mechanic and he was a mechanic 25 years ago, and you're asking him about how to fix like my favorite car is a McLaren. I love the McLaren. Anybody who doesn't love McLarens is crazy. McLaren supercar. These things are absolutely gorgeous. I just love their design, right? So if I'm going to a guy who's a mechanic 20 years ago and I'm asking him about my specialty McLaren, and he's like, well, I've been a mechanic for 25 years, I can take apart any car. I tell you what, this side of the Mississippi, and I'll do you pretty solid on how much I'm going to charge you. I know somebody else told you what the answer was, but you can save a lot of money coming to me, and I'll get you fixed right up there. He's not a McLaren specialist. He does not know how to work on a McLaren engine. This is not the same kind of engine that you're going to get with your standard Ford or, Chevy 20 years ago. So, yeah, would I take advice from him on something that I definitely would need the specialist for? No. Don't consult somebody who has no understanding of stuff and then go to, well, yeah, but that specialist, he seems pretty full of himself. Yeah, he should be. Honestly, yeah. And is he talking in words and saying things that you maybe don't understand? Very, very likely. Yeah. Those are specialty terms. Those are things that he's very familiar with. He deals with them every friggin' day and has dealt with them for probably decades. The guy sleeps probably a lot less than you do and has given his life to focus on trying to help people stay alive. and healthy. Yeah, I trust that guy. I trust that guy a little bit more than I trust a guy who is a foot doctor and has not kept up with his epidemiology studies because of the number of foot epidemiology issues that we have had over the years. Everybody getting those special foot diseases that go around and take lives or toes. I mean, the reality of it. You have to be real. You have to be realistic with how all of this works. So medicine is a crazy thing. Medicine is a crazy thing. And unfortunately, it's become heavily politicized, like a lot of things have become heavily politicized. And I feel like Americans are inserting politics into things that aren't political, shouldn't be political, should be common sense, honestly. Like, why are some things driven into politics? And I guess the reality of it is most things are driven into politics because people want to save money on their taxes. That's really what it all comes down to, is people don't want to spend any more money on their taxes than they absolutely have to. They want to feel like, if they're not getting to take all their money home that they work so hard for, that it goes to things that they want it to go for. It's a selfish ideology that's kind of simple-minded in a way. And I'm not saying that people are inherently simple or bad because they want to take home all of their money. That's not the case. You can obviously claim zero on your W-4s and get more money that way. But there's always going to be money taken out for Social Security. There's always going to be money taken out for Medicare, Medicaid. There's always going to be taxes taken out as well, obviously. Some of that's for your local county. And those funds go to all kinds of things in your local counties. And if you don't know where that's going in your local county, go to a county board meeting or request a county budget from your, if you have a city administrator or them. They're usually pretty cool with that. They'll even walk you through things if you give them time. Or you can try to get your county board supervisor to get you some of that information. I mean, there's lots of ways to find out where that percentage is. If you don't know what percentage that is, it's usually the decimal point. I don't know too many counties that are charging more than a fraction of a percentage. So a lot of Wisconsin, most of the counties are 0.5%. But not all of them. So you can check out, all you have to do is look at your taxes and they'll say like the state tax in Wisconsin is 5%. And then whatever that fraction is after that. So 0.5, 0.7, whatever it may be, that's your county tax. All right. So obviously those are always going to come out. They can fluctuate. Most counties try to not fluctuate because if you go down, you're never going to get that money back in your budget. So if anything, it's going to go up. And the goal of any county is to not go up either because people are going to be awful upset. You want to try to keep it to be about the same amount. Let inflation take care of what inflation is going to take care of. But yeah, you want to keep everything about the same amount. And then your property taxes don't have to go up. Your mill rate won't go up and then people can be happy. But yeah, you're always going to have taxes coming out. You're always going to have programs that are being paid for that you may not agree with, but other people do agree with. And it's a give and take with that because everybody's going to have things that they want and everybody's going to have things that they don't want. And in the end of the day, all the people in your legislative offices are just trying to make the best of the situation that they can for everybody by giving a little bit from everybody to everybody. Just trying to make every deal work. That's how it works. It's not a political thing in the end. It really isn't. It's everybody just trying to make sure like the really important things are taken care of. That roads exist, that they're passable, that if people are starving to death because of a situation, that we don't let members of our society starve to death. And there's more than enough money to take care of them. And people would say, well, let people who want to take care of them take care of them. No. That's such a bad attitude, honestly. In a society where we technically have more than enough money to take care of everybody, I think we should do so. And obviously that's my personal philosophy. But I think it's kind of gross when people who have more than enough say, like obviously if somebody doesn't have enough or is, homeless or it's all on them. A lot of the times it's not. And I'm not saying it's never on them, but even if it were on them, um, I don't know their whole story. I don't even need to know their whole story for me to be a good person, or what I like to think of as a good person, right? So, yeah, I mean, I want to do the right thing. I want to feel like I'm doing the right thing, and so yeah, sometimes I mean that may not be congruent with other people, with what other people think is the right thing or the good thing to do. And that's honestly where a lot of stuff gets caught up. So, with that said, I'm pretty much through the health insurance thing. Health insurance, obviously, huge scam. Drove up prices at hospitals like crazy and managed to still fuck hospitals out of making enough money to do business without donors and everything else coming in. And, you know, having to take over, having to have control over hospitals that they shouldn't have control over. Then you have those people as well as CEOs of and CFOs and all these people and and adjusters and shit and insurance agencies also determining what. So you got a whole bunch of people with no medical expertise making decisions, and board meetings on what health you need, and that shouldn't happen. That should never happen ever. And nobody but a health insurance professional or somebody who's very well educated in health insurance and has a doctorate should ever be making decisions on what your medical needs are. If we can figure out a way to just cut out these cats, no more fucking private health insurance companies, or at least not exploitative, maybe we can start fixing and healing the nation and have a more united and healthier workforce and healthier consumers. Because healthier on both. One, if you're healthy and you can work more often, do a better job, whatever the case may be, you're going to make more money. Two, if you have more money or if you're healthy, you can afford to go out and do more things and buy more things. That's the reality of the situation, is that you only strengthen the economy by keeping people healthy, right? By allowing your workers to be healthier and work more. Private insurance does not have that interest, because if they're spending all of the money on everything that would obviously keep people healthy all the time, one, if you're healthy, you're going to use the doctor less. You're going to see that you need insurance less than you do. You're not going to go there as often. You may not buy their more expensive insurance plans. Two, they're not making a profit by approving everything that you do, and it will be more profitable for them at times for them to settle a lawsuit over a death than it will be to actually pay to keep somebody alive who maybe would even fully recover later on. But it's just going to be expensive for them. So that's where health insurance is at. That's the reality of the situation. They're making billions of dollars net profit. That's not even the gross profit. But actually, let's check that real quick before we head off. Health care industry gross profit 2023. $65 billion in revenue. Yeah, that's nuts. Oh, they're just going to give us margins. They don't want to give us hard figures. Trying to find the actual hard figure sometimes. Yeah, so they grossed $55 billion. So obviously they only netted, what was it last year, like 22 billion, but they still grossed $55 billion. So they spent $33 billion, assumingly, on all their costs. But obviously, a lot of that cost is going to be to their own workers. We'd have to look at their individual P&Ls to see how much money they spent to individual actual healthcare decisions. I would venture a wild guess that it's nowhere near as much of that 33 billion as we would like to believe. Yeah, they're averaging around $50 billion a year in gross profit. That's a huge amount of money. So, and that's just the one company. This Sonic Healthcare profited $2.8 billion in 2022. Yeah, yeah, we could look up each company individually. That would take some time. I don't want to really do that. But yeah, obviously the health insurance industry is making insane, stupid profits. And that's after everything. So, and here's my deal. If they can't afford to take your money and to give you the healthcare that you need, then it's a failed system. It's either the business model has failed or the health industry itself is a failure. And I wouldn't say that either of those is not true. I think both of those can absolutely be true at the same time. And I think we need to figure out how to fix that. Because right now, I don't think that the health insurance industry or the healthcare industry are interested in trying to figure out how to fix that. They both want to keep making the same amount of money. The boards definitely want to keep making the same amount of money. Unfortunately, because a lot of hospitals went private and they're stock driven. And anytime you have anything driven by stocks, it's pure profit driven. You can't fix something like that by saying we're going to need to make less annual or less quarterly revenue for a period of time. We're going to have to do like a reset on it because that's going to drive the value of their stock down. They're going to freak out. People are going to sell the stock, potentially shutting down a hospital, even though it could still be absolutely profitable. It's a huge problem with the whole stock market thing. But that's what I got for you guys for today. Just my 2 cents. Do I think the assassination of the dude was a good idea? No. I don't think, and I cannot condone one vigilantism. Don't get me wrong, I've been tempted in my day. I once told my wife if we hadn't gotten married, there's every chance I would have ended up being some kind of vigilante for justice. You know, that tragic poet side of me that just, that's working with the warrior side of me that just can't deal with all the injustice in the world. But I don't condone this killing. Do I feel bad about it? I can't say I feel bad about it. I don't feel bad about it. I don't know the guy, but I know the industry that he was a part of. I know that he was an executive officer in that industry that was guiding business practices. Maybe he thought he was doing the right thing. Maybe he really did. I don't know. A lot of people do the awful things thinking that they're doing great things. Do I think that makes them a bad person? That's between them and God, man. I don't know. I don't know their motivations behind it. I don't know their education behind it. I don't know enough about the situation. That's one of the reasons why being a vigilante is something that, the police don't want, because it takes justice out of the hands of people who can do the investigation, and it takes away the process of law and order. So while I think guys like this might very well just be shitheads who are absolutely bastardizing industries to take advantage of people and make massive profits off of people, I don't think that everybody involved in all of these industries are bad people. A lot of them, I think, just want a job. I think a lot of them just want to feel some form of success. And it sucks for, some of them, at the end of the day, I think go home and they have a hard time living with some of those decisions. I really do. I hope that they have that genuine compassion and acknowledgement of those situations. But I don't know that. And I don't want to assume. So do I think the killing was wrong? Yeah, I think killing people is wrong. Out of vengeance, out of misplaced justice. Do I feel bad for the guy though? No. I don't know him well enough to feel bad for him. I don't have a feeling either way. I just don't. But I would say don't follow this kind of example. Don't do this sort of thing. Don't become a vigilante like this. Not unless you can drop a lot of hard evidence that it was the right thing to do. But it's not going to solve anything. You know, other people are going to come in and fill that position. It's not going to change how a lot of stuff go. It would take a lot more than this to change the industry or to make things better. And there's got to be a better way. There does have to be a better way. We're supposed to have checks and balances through our government, and we need to figure out how to empower our government to do a better job of this. That's where I stand anyway. And if our government's not going to do that job, I do understand the frustration. I do understand the frustration and the motivation potentially behind something like this. But that doesn't mean I condone it. I can understand the frustration and stuff behind a lot of stuff. But I would never condone those kind of acts. I can exist in both dynamics. I can see things in many aspects and still not agree with doing the wrong thing. But that's where I am. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but you know, everybody has a right to their feelings. Everybody has a right to understand things the way that they potentially understand them. So, but don't let politics tell you how to feel about things. If you're waiting for a political group or individual to guide you in how you feel about something, I would advise you not to do that. Make up your mind on how you feel about things before that. Be strong enough to just feel your own feelings and not have to wait for somebody to give you the okay to feel your feelings. That you'll be able to, you know, still have face with a group of people if you express yourself one way or another. That's real. That's human, man. You got to be able to feel the way you feel at the end of the day, because that's how you deal with the world. I'm gonna let you guys go. You guys have a good day. I apparently have to go feed my teenager because at 17 years old, she can't make a sandwich. I'm just kidding, kiddo. I love you. I will talk to everybody later. If there's a subject you guys want to talk about or hear about, feel free to let me know.